And welcome everyone. We're back with another one from r/LabRats. Underpaid, underappreciated, and overworked. So let's get into it and talk about this person's story. I got into research because I wanted to make a difference in the world and contribute to science. Oh, don't we all? Does that mean I should struggle and live paycheck to paycheck for the rest of my life? Everyone around me is in STEM but in different fields, and hearing how much they're getting paid straight out of school with zero experience is making me so sad. Especially since I see tons of job postings requiring bachelor's degrees but pay close to minimum wage in high cost of living areas with zero benefits. I've been trying to look for a new job for months, but now they either are minimum wage or require a minimum of 3 years of experience in a relevant field. I've been applying nonetheless, but I just need to vent a little. Well, OP, we're happy to hear you vent, and let's see if anyone has any helpful advice. The ONS released its wage data for this year, and I read through it this morning. Extremely disheartening to read the median lab tech earns $24,000 while a large goods driver earns $37,000. Should have not gone to uni and just followed my dad and driving a van doing deliveries for DPD. I honestly think UK science is going into crisis soon, if it isn't already. The wages are getting to not even be a funny joke anymore. My postdoc salary, it turns out, is now on a level with what most graduate roles are offering people coming out with a BSc. And I was just sent application details for an internal fellowship, which would be the next progression step, but the offered salary would be nearly £3,000 less. But progression step, but the offered salary would be a nearly £3,000 cut. UK industry salaries are shit too. That's the bit people don't seem to understand. I could get a decent salary in a startup, but we're talking around 10 roles being advertised across the whole country, if that. You can get a decent salary by not being in the lab. Sales and management seem competitive with other sectors. Just seems like actual lab work is not viewed as having any real value or something. It's very weird. My first industry/clinical job, adjusting for inflation, wouldn't even be minimum wage today. Lol. Oh god. And, I get our lab workers, like the factory workers of science, just even though they're doing all the direct work and that the entire organization depends on them, they're just sort of viewed as replaceable and just handling machines. Uh, oh god. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. Oh. It's nuts. I made like 22K as a lab tech. I was willing to take it because I was straight out of university with no actual lab experience since my last year was spent doing online classes. I had a coworker with a master's. He made the same amount. Bro, I got a job in quality manufacturing a year before graduating with bachelor's and now making 80K with OT. I have previous pharmacy experience as a tech at a hospital and working in the aseptic lab, but there I made 35,000 USD. Wages are a fair bit lower here in the UK. $80,000 is around £64,000. That's more in line with director/extremely senior level management positions, specialist doctors like surgeons, school head teachers. $35,000 is £28,000, which does match what certain technicians will earn after a couple of years moving up the pay scale. Y'all are getting robbed in the U. I was 18 years old making that with no degree. I managed to get a 2+ years of experience, master's preferred, research job straight out of undergrad solely because of connections. I do not think I deserve that job. Even so, the quality of life I have compared to some of my peers in comp sci, engineering, even marketing is appalling. I internally cry when I casually place a single $5,000 order for the lab when that's double what I make per month in an HCOL area. High cost of living, I assume. Family and friends always say, "Oh, but that must be such a rewarding job." Unfortunately, that doesn't pay the bills. Maybe some people thrive in delayed gratification jobs, but I quickly learned that I'm not one of them. You may realize research isn't what's best for you, and that's okay. Holy shit! You make $2,500 a month in a position that requires 2+ years of experience, master's preferred? My friend who literally just graduated got his first job offer and he makes $66,000 annually with great benefits. I was happy for him, but I genuinely had to excuse myself so I could go cry in the washroom. Add to that the higher taxes that we have in the UK compared to the USA. With a £35,000 salary, I get £2,200 a month after taxes. Granted, higher taxes means a better social support and healthcare, though. I didn't go in expecting to earn as much as my engineer friends do, but it's still sad realizing the actual reality of highly educated people barely being able to afford to live. Thanks. I have been crying earlier. I just needed to let it out to feel better. Most bachelor's degrees leave people living paycheck to paycheck these days. It has nothing to do with the degree and everything to do with the shit economic hand we've been dealt. Yep, I feel this. I live in Northern California and had a lab tech job for close to 3 years, started out $16 an hour before taxes. I was hopeful because I thought it opened me to a lab environment, and then I became a lab analyst and and they were only paying me $24 an hour before taxes. I was overworked, underpaid. I was overworked, underpaid because lots of other Bay Area companies are paying a little bit more, but not enough to be honest. It's rough out there. What are some examples of biohub areas? Some would be Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, North. The Research Triangle, RTP, near North Carolina, Boston, the Bay Area, San Francisco. These areas will have startups, running biotechs, and pharmas from small to big. Market is slow at the moment, but it'll most likely open back up next year. But these areas are usually teeming with opportunities. Also, Maryland. We have NIH in Baltimore, Bethesda, and Frederick. We also have the 270 corridor. Baltimore is up and coming with startups, lots of new construction near University of Maryland, Baltimore, where I got my PhD, and worked before moving to a TT position. I used to love my job. Then, the PhD in charge of my project became a micromanaging asshole. Everything I say is wrong, and he nitpicks everything I do. I do all the bench work, and he complains about presentation and wording. I love where I work, but I don't see a way out of this without burning bridges. I don't get paid enough for this shit. I'm starting to eye the door, which I never do after only a year. Go to industry. There are no bachelor's level careers in lab science. Bachelor's level tech jobs now seemingly only exist for people to get work experience in between undergrad and applying to grad school. You need a master's or PhD, or MD, I suppose, to be compensated well, and that still only happens outside academia. There are exceptions if you have lots of work experience, but that means you already bit the bullet and made terrible money for years. At that point, you could have done a PhD for comparable compensation. So many positions only offering $14 to $17 an hour here. Good luck finding someone willing to work for less than McDonald's is paying and affording a $1,500 to $2,000 a month rent, utilities, student loans, health insurance, food, and transportation to get to the lab. The first two may be tricky to change, but I feel like so much of the overwork is a culture problem rather than a genuine need to get stuff done, obviously with some exceptions. If more people started going home at 5 o'clock on the dot, then we might start getting somewhere. You know, a part of me wonders about the work culture being so willing to work past 5 o'clock and being so willing to put up with unreasonable demands for unreasonable pay. Could it just be that in order to get to the level where you could work in a lab at such an advanced, with such an advanced skill set, where you could have a PhD or a master's in biotech or biology or parasitology, you have to go through a PhD or master's program, and university labor is kind of the standard for being exploitative. I mean, when you were willing to do intense lab work as what is more or less an apprentice for 2 to 4 years for what would effectively be less than minimum wage for some people, you honestly would be willing to think, oh, well, industry salaries, I'm making $66,000 a year, $50,000 a year, something that's not absolute poverty wages, you would feel like, oh, this is great comparatively. But maybe that is the reason. Just the fire doesn't seem as hot when you jump into boiling water. But in fact, when you compare it to engineers or computer scientists or people who didn't go through such a brutal, exploitative, rigorous, and downright painful experience in some cases of PhD programs with, depending upon how nice your PI was, maybe those people are better at negotiating for salaries, or there's more of a standard of that group of people demanding more because they didn't go through poverty wages and the suffering that was the academic labor. PhDs and postdocs in the US are very underpaid. In fact, even biotech workers in general are underpaid. This needs to be changed. I mean, yes, this is an accurate observation, though I think I'd add it probably is in most places where they're fairly underpaid. I don't think it's specifically a US or even Anglophonic world problem. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening to OP's problem and the various comments on it. Hopefully those of you out there who are going through something similar can relate, and maybe leave your stories in the comments.